U.S. and Israel withdraw from Gaza ceasefire talks. What's next? The fragile hopes for peace in Gaza have suddenly shattered as both U.S. and Israeli negotiators storm out of truce talks, accusing Hamas of sabotaging the ceasefire process. But here's where it gets controversial. Hamas claims it was blindsided by the withdrawal and insists it's negotiating in good faith. A stark contradiction that leaves the world wondering who's truly blocking peace. United States envoy Steve Witkoff made the explosive announcement Thursday, cutting short talks in Qatar after declaring Hamas showed a lack of desire to reach a ceasefire in Israel's Gaza conflict. Within hours, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu recalled his team, deepening the diplomatic crisis. What's especially revealing? Hamas immediately fired back, calling the U.S. move surprising and emphasizing its keenness to continue negotiations. A response that throws the blame game into sharp relief. This collapse comes after Hamas submitted its latest response to a ceasefire framework proposed by mediators Qatar, Egypt, and the U.S. While neither side disclosed details, the proposal reportedly included a 60-day pause in fighting, where Hamas would release 10 living captives plus 18 bodies. Israel would free Palestinian prisoners, aid would surge into Gaza, and both sides would negotiate a permanent truce. And this is the part most people miss. The breakdown isn't just about hostages. It's about Israel's long-term military ambitions in Gaza versus Hamas's demand for full withdrawal, a fundamental clash that's torpedoed every deal since October. Meanwhile, Gaza's civilians paid a horrific price. Over 115 people, mostly children and elderly, have starved to death in recent weeks as Bivriel restricts aid, while the overall death toll has surpassed 59,500 Palestinians. More than 100 aid agencies now accuse Israel of causing mass starvation through its blockade, a crisis worsening by the hour. The U.S. insists it's exploring alternative options, but Witkoff, a businessman with no prior diplomatic experience, drew criticism for calling Hamas selfish without detailing solutions. Even more alarming, Israel's reported plan to forcibly relocate Palestinians into enclosed humanitarian cities, a scheme human rights groups condemn as a potential war crime. When Defense Minister Israel Katz pushed this earlier this month, even Israeli officials feared it would doom hostage negotiations. So here's the burning question. Is the U.S. withdrawal a hardball negotiation tactic, or does it signal a dangerous shift toward harsher measures? Remember, Trump's team hasn't ruled out ethnic cleansing, framing it as self-deportation. What's your take? Should the world pressure Israel to soften its stance, or is Hamas the true obstacle? The silence from negotiation rooms is deafening, but the stakes have never been higher. Drop your perspective below. Let's debate this critical turning point. Hamas Hardens stance. Ceasefire talks breakdown. Ceasefire negotiations between Israel and Hamas have hit a major setback, with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu recalling Israel's negotiating team from Doha. Hamas has hardened its stance, demanding the release of 200 Palestinians serving life sentences for murder, and an additional 2,000 detained after October 7th. The breakdown in talks comes as a joint statement by 25 countries condemning Israel's conduct in Gaza has further complicated the situation. Hostage families are expressing deep concern about the stalled negotiations, warning that every passing day endangers the hostages' chances of recovery and the ability to locate the dead. The negotiations, part of a U.S.-backed deal involving a 60-day ceasefire, the release of remaining Israeli hostages, and expanded humanitarian aid to Gaza, are now in jeopardy. As the humanitarian crisis in Gaza worsens, the UN and international aid groups warn of severe food insecurity. Despite mounting pressure, Israel is increasing the pace of aid deliveries, but logistical breakdowns on the Palestinian side have left over 800 trucks uncollected at the crossings. The situation remains tense, with Israeli officials warning that significant gaps remain in the negotiations. Breaking. U.S. cuts Gaza ceasefire talks. What's next? In a stunning turn of events, President Donald Trump's special envoy, Steve Witkoff, announced on Thursday that the U.S. is abruptly ending Gaza ceasefire negotiations and recalling its negotiating team from Qatar for further consultations. This decision comes in the wake of Hamas's latest response, which, according to Witkoff, demonstrates a glaring lack of commitment to achieving a ceasefire in Gaza. Despite the mediator's tireless efforts, Hamas seems neither coordinated nor genuinely interested in a peaceful resolution, Witkoff remarked. We are now exploring alternative strategies to secure the release of hostages and foster a more stable environment for Gaza's residents. Witkoff expressed disappointment, labeling Hamas's actions as selfish, and reaffirmed the U.S.'s unwavering resolve to end the Gaza conflict. But here's where it gets controversial. The Trump administration has struggled for months to broker a ceasefire deal between Israel and Hamas, with conditions in Gaza deteriorating rapidly. The situation hit a grim milestone recently, marking the deadliest day for aid seekers in over 21 months of conflict, with at least 85 Palestinians losing their lives while attempting to access food. Negotiations in Qatar have spanned weeks, yielding minor progress but no significant breakthroughs. A major sticking point remains the redeployment of Israeli troops post-ceasefire. In a parallel move, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's office also recalled its negotiating team, citing Hamas's response. While expressing gratitude for Witkoff's and the mediators' efforts, the Prime Minister's office offered no additional insights. The proposed deal envisages a 60-day ceasefire, during which Hamas would release 10 hostages and the remains of 18 others in phases, in exchange for Palestinians held by Israel. The plan also includes increased aid supplies and negotiations for a lasting truce. However, the talks have stalled due to conflicting demands. Hamas insists on a complete Israeli withdrawal and an end to the war for the release of all hostages, while Israel demands that Hamas relinquish power and disarm, a condition Hamas flatly rejects. Earlier in the week, the State Department had indicated Witkoff would travel to the Middle East for talks, but later reports suggested a shift to Europe. It remains unclear whether Witkoff held any meetings there on Thursday. What do you think? Is the U.S.'s decision to cut short the talks a strategic move or a missed opportunity? Share your thoughts in the comments.